when Apple launched their app store. We had one of the first 100 apps in the app store. I'm an early adopter for all the things that are tech. And I'm just constantly evaluating new stuff and trying to think a year ahead or 2 or 3 years ahead. And when I have something that I believe in, that I think has a future, it is not about getting rid of people. It's about making your people more productive.
Welcome to the Las Vegas IT podcast. And today I have the pleasure of speaking to Hunter Jensen with Barefoot Solutions. How are you doing today, Hunter?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I am super excited to get to know you a little bit better. Could you just tell us a little bit about Barefoot Solutions?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder CEO of Barefoot. We've been in business over 20 years at this point. Primarily, we are a custom software development shop. We got started as kind of an extension of my freelance web development work when I was in college, just picking up gigs on Craigslist, and I grew the business organically from there. And so, we started off as a web development shop making WordPress websites back in, 2004. Moved into mobile apps very, very early on, which kind of fueled our growth for a number of years. Then we got into kind of IoT, connected devices, medical devices, that kind of thing. After that came blockchain, which was a fun little ride we had for a couple of years. And then most recently, everything's AI. Every project that we see has some sort of AI component to it. And so we've worked with enterprise like Microsoft and Salesforce and Samsung have been clients of ours. We work with venture funded startups, which is a lot of fun, but not necessarily like reliable. And mostly we work with medium-sized companies, either building products for their clients or business process stuff, internal stuff, you name it. We've done it.
Got it. No, that's so awesome. So you've been in business now for about 20 years. I mean, you said you got started with creating WordPress websites, and I'm sure that's a huge difference from what WordPress is today.
It was very, very early days. PHP 3 was the programming language at the time, and it has evolved immensely. Like we've been able to be in business as long as we have. A lot of shops like mine don't make it this long. And the reason we've been able to stay relevant is by staying ahead of technology, right? Like we had one of the first 100 apps in the app store for when Apple launched their app store. And, decisions like that to kind of get in early on new tech has enabled us to, continue to evolve. If we were building WordPress websites right now, I don't know that we'd still be in business.
Yeah, well, especially now, everybody wants to be a WordPress developer. So yeah. I'm sure that's a lot of people that's the direction that they want to go. So, but that's awesome. And one of the things that you did mention is, staying ahead of technology. And how is it that you do that personally?
It's my favorite part of this job, actually, which is I get to learn and tinker. So I read voraciously every day. I'm reading something for an hour or two. I, am an early adopter for all the things that are tech. And I'm just constantly evaluating new stuff and trying to think a year ahead or 2 or 3 years ahead. And when I have something that I believe in, that I think has a future, then I get my team ramped up on it, and we do like little demo projects and we tinker with stuff, or we'll have like a, lunch and learn event so that we're ready, and we reposition our marketing and everything and get that one flagship client with a new technology, and then use that case study to drive new business in that area. It's the same playbook. We've done it, we've kind of done it 5 times now. And, every time is a little bit different, of course, but yeah, just getting to like tinker with, I was tinkering with Midjourney a year and a half ago, right? When it was like a brand new thing. And I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be important, I think. And, I was a beta user for ChatGPT and all of that stuff. And so that's how we kind of stay ahead is, it's a big part of my job to look into the future and make sure we're well positioned to deliver what our clients need.
Understood. And so with what you've said, for one, I mean, some people may not know what Midjourney is. Can you just kind of share exactly what that is?
Yeah, Midjourney it's generative AI for images primarily. And this was kind of early days before, I mean, not before DALL-E, but before DALL-E really was a huge leader in image generation. You had to be pretty tech savvy to use it. You had to use the Discord app to generate images, but I just thought it was so neat that, you could just write out a prompt and get and get a set of images. And, back then, if you like people had like 3 arms and like missing teeth and their thumbs were weird. And there was all sorts of problems with it that have since a lot of them have been ironed out. Not all of them, but a lot of them have been ironed out at this point. But, that was just very, very early days of generative AI.
Got it. And then when you say Discord, are you talking about the application? Could you explain exactly what that is? Because I have an idea what you're talking about for Discord, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, so Discord is like a community chat platform. And it's really big in gaming and like certain communities, blockchain. It was like Web3 communities were on Discord. And it was a place where you kind of create channels, like you create a Slack channel, but they're more open and free. And Midjourney made the choice to not develop their own user interface for a long while. And so you jumped into Midjourney and you installed into Discord, you installed the Midjourney bot, and then you wrote your prompt in to that bot and it would respond back with an image. And so that was an interesting choice by them, but it did help them develop like a pretty strong community that way because people could share their images and chat about stuff. And here's a cool prompt I tried and all sorts of things like that.
Understood. So it's more of a community for people.
It is, but it
Okay.
can be used as as a platform for, they're called bots or for apps that you can install into your Discord, but it's very much a chat based interface where you're kind of chatting with the bot and it's responding.
Understood. And with that, I'm guessing, is it very similar to ChatGPT?
At this point, well, no, not really, because it's really focused on images. Whereas ChatGPT does both. It does regular natural language as well as images. If people are in the early days, they were not integrated that way. There was DALL-E and there was ChatGPT, and both of them owned by OpenAI. But I forget how long ago it was, probably a year ago. OpenAI integrated DALL-E into ChatGPT such that you could then ask it to generate images for you. But under the hood, those are different models, right? ChatGPT is a large language model, an LLM, whereas DALL-E is a diffusion model. And the math and the algorithms and the training and all of that work very differently between those two types of models.
Got it. And I've personally have seen it where, you ask ChatGPT to create you an image and they give you something like that's really off, but I do believe that they're getting better.
Yes. It is not nowhere close to perfect, but improving all the time.
Yeah, very true. And then with you getting started about 20 years ago and got started with WordPress, what took you to this direction of business with where you're currently at?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, so kind of origin story here. I was in the computer science department undergrad in Virginia and dropped out, not of college, but of that department because they weren't teaching new stuff. They were behind by a few years as traditional academia tends to be. And so I got a liberal arts degree in philosophy and economics, but I checked books out from the library and taught myself how to code. And I was just getting gigs on Craigslist and, nights and weekends and outside of classes, picking up jobs. And when I graduated, it was very natural for me to want to continue that work. I loved it. And, I was my own boss and making my own hours and all the rest of it. But then you get to a point where you realize that, when you're billing your own time, there's very much a ceiling on the money that you can make and the value that you can drive for your clients. And so that's when I started hiring either for jobs that I wasn't any good at or that I just didn't like, and grew it organically over the years. One big milestone, though, was back in 2019. I actually sold a controlling interest of Barefoot to a very large global software consultancy based in Poland. And so we're like kind of a boutique shop, it's very white glove and hands-on, long-term engagements, that kind of thing. But at my parent company, we have 1,500 engineers. So we've got the horsepower of like a major software shop. Like we can spin up a team of 10 or 20 engineers in a matter of a week or two on new projects. And so that has put us in a very unique position. There are not a lot of software agencies that can say that are kind of have the benefits of being small and the benefits of being very big at the same time. That's kind of how we've differentiated from our competitors. And honestly, I would say the number one driver of business for us has just been relationships. Just building relationships with people over many, many years is the way that we've maintained and grown this business.
Understood. No, I totally agree with you. Just the importance of building a relationship with people. What are some of your most recent examples of a project that went well due to a relationship that you've had created possibly, recently or in the past?
Yeah. Let's see. So I won't name names, but I was in a fraternity at the University of Virginia when I was in college. And there was a guy in the same house that was younger than me. And we became great friends. But then you leave college and you kind of drift apart. And many years later, so this was like 3 or 4 years ago. So like 15 years later, I haven't talked to this guy in many years. And he pops up out of the woodwork and he's running an auto dealership group. And they have been our best client for the last 2 years. And so that's just like a good example of just if you're good to people, it may not like immediately or directly benefit you, but in the long run, if you just build relationships and trust with people, eventually it actually is very much in your own self-interest to do so, because that stuff, the universe brings it back to you in some capacity.
No, it's very true. And I just love that. It's a relationship that started back in college.
Mm-hmm.
So some time ago, which is awesome. When it comes to your current tools, because, one of the things that we did talk about is AI, and that's been a huge topic on this podcast. What does it look like on your guys' side for implementing that into a business?
Yeah. So we've seen a trend. In 2024, it was a lot of like prototypes or like, let's dip our toes in the water with this, right? Or let's address this like single use case at our business and see how it works. 2025, it's all in. Like if you don't have an AI budget line item, like you're missing the boat at this point in 2025. And so what we're kind of preaching is that we need to stop talking about use cases and start talking about platforms. And what do I mean by that? Companies need to boost their employees' productivity. And they need to keep growing, but they don't necessarily want to hire all that much in this environment, right? So how can we grow without hiring? Well, if our employees are 30% more productive every day, then that can drive revenue and profit. And so what we've been building is kind of, on-prem. I say on-prem, but normally that just means on client cloud infrastructure, AI's assistant and agent that can perform all sorts of different tasks for all sorts of different employees because it's connected to their document management. It's connected to their single sign-on and authentication, maybe their CRM or their accounting software. It's connected to all these kind of data sources. And it can be an assistant and a tool for employees to do their jobs better, more efficiently, faster, produce more with the same amount of time. And so that is where we have been focused in this year specifically, is building out these like all the big major companies, they have these already. Goldman Sachs has something called GSAI. BAE Systems rolled one of these out. JP Morgan has one. But they have the resources to build these internally. When you start looking at small to medium-sized businesses, which I believe a lot of your audiences is in that segment, they don't have the resources to build that out internally, typically, right? And so that's where we come in at Barefoot. We've actually built a product around this that we're calling Compass, which is very customizable, and it's not SaaS, right? Because SaaS doesn't work for these businesses. They might handle use cases, but in terms of a platform, like an operating system for their business where they can do a lot of different things, they need something that's for them, that's built for them, that's connected to their weird legacy database or their, accounting system that nobody uses anymore. And like all sorts of things like that. That's what we've been building and selling, in the last like 6 months, we'll say, and is a real core focus of ours right now.
Got it. So with this, I'm guessing with what you're able to offer to businesses, what I'm hearing is that it helps with not having to use multiple AI systems. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
It's that, but also, there's a lot of companies that are dealing in confidential information all day, right? Think financial services, insurance, IT, banking, you name it. They can't just go to ChatGPT and upload customer information and ask questions about it, right? That's a violation of the confidentiality. And so this is about providing tools for your team so they're not leaking confidential information into these third-party large language model platforms, right? And so it is about boosting efficiency and, not having to use a million different tools and having a single place. But it's also about being able to connect to your proprietary data sources, right? When you're using third-party tools, you often can't do that, but you need to. You need to be able to query data. It's not enough to just ask a large language model when you're trying to operate a business and you're trying to do your job. And so it solves a few different pain points there.
Got it. So you're pretty much saying that with the tool that you guys can help with, and I'm just trying to make sure I have a full understanding, is that it's more of like a private sector, so their information is protected.
That's right. Yeah.
Got it.
That's one of the main reasons that we built this, is that, people whose jobs involve confidential information are feeling left behind. Because if you're in sales and marketing, you're on ChatGPT all day and you're doing all sorts of cool stuff and you're writing, AI emails and generating images and fun. But if you're an accountant, no, you're not. You're not using it at all, in fact, because, you're doing work for a client and it can't help you with that unless it knows certain things, right? And so that's where, companies that are dealing in that kind of information on a regular basis, maybe it's a code base that you're dealing with, like for us, any number of things, like you can't just share these things. And so it's about having an internal system to help your employees be more productive.
Got it. And this is actually, I have a friend who's a real estate agent, and she was telling me that she couldn't use really ChatGPT when it comes to like certain things, because there's certain policies that they have to follow when it comes to making sure that they don't share certain things. So I'm guessing that that's one reason why it would be private for a real estate agent, so you can customize it for them. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yep. That's a great use case. Like, maybe you want to use it to help you review a purchase contract, right? You can't that's confidential. You cannot upload that into ChatGPT, right? But if you had your own internal private system, you can. And so there's, most jobs, in fact, have some form of that Compass is trying to solve.
Got it. Now that's so awesome, because I do know many, if it's real estate agents, doctor offices, like all the things that you mentioned as well, and accountants. So that's a great tool for these people. When it comes to, do you have any real world examples that you'd like to share with us of it, helping a business save them time, resources when it came to using your guys' services?
I do. I have a couple examples. It's still early days, but here are some of the use cases. I had an attorney tell me that it saved 6 hours per week of his time. When you multiply that times an absurd hourly rate and the number of attorneys at a particular firm, the number gets in the 9 figures. I had a defense contractor say that they could probably write 25% more proposals per year for government projects, which equates to a 25% increase in revenue over time. We have a pharmaceutical company that estimated they can design, I think it was 20% more clinical trials in a particular year, which is how they get paid. So these are not just like incremental, like these are game changing numbers for these businesses. It's like hiring a whole new team to get more done without the cost of that. And and I want to be clear what it's not. It is not about getting rid of people. It's about making your people more productive, right? We're not going in and saying, oh, you can cut 20% of your customer support staff with this new tool. We're saying your existing customer support staff can now handle way more tickets way faster than they used to. We're going to increase the velocity of it. That's the point of what we're trying to do, right? It's not AI replacing workers. It's AI enhancing them and boosting them and raising them up.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
Just the importance of understanding that you still need a human being behind the tools.
Yeah. In data science, we call that the human in the loop.
Yes. I do think that's super, super important. When it comes to, I guess, who are you currently looking to? Are you looking more to reach out to the corporate, like, I mentioned a real estate agent that I know. I'm guessing you would be interested in reaching out to her person that she works under or over. Yeah. Under.
Yeah. This is not a tool for individual personal use. It's focused on businesses. So, talking to CEOs, owners, CTOs sometimes, CMOs sometimes at, small to mid-sized companies is really who we're targeting with this. We're not trying to be an enterprise tool because they don't need us. They can do it themselves, and they are doing it themselves. But going after, a law firm that has a couple hundred attorneys, as an example, or a defense contractor that has 30 employees. Both of these are real world examples. Those are the types of people that we're kind of delivering this for.
Yeah, totally. I totally understand that, which is so awesome. And then when it comes to, with AI, where are you seeing that it's going to be at in the next few years?
How much time we got? No, yeah, I mean, the pace of change is like never before. We've never seen this. And it's accelerating. It's actually getting faster. And you know, within 3 years, we're going to have AGI, artificial general intelligence, that's going to be better than humans at most things, which is the definition of AGI that I like. And if you combine that with a few other things, so, I mean, one of the most exciting things about that for me is in health and medicine. Drug discovery specifically, I think, is going to be the thing that blows this world wide open. With enough compute and sophisticated enough models, discovering new drugs that, even for, like right now, the way it works is a disease has to be a big enough problem for these pharmaceutical companies to pour millions and billions into research to find new drugs for them. And so if you have a rare disease, you don't get medicine because the pharmaceutical companies, they can't get an ROI on that research. All of a sudden, the economics of that are completely different, right? And you can solve these long tail medical issues. And so I see a massive increase in health and the lifespans of people and, crazy worldwide changes. I think it's like, what a time to be alive. We're going to see that in our generation. We're going to be on the front lines for that kind of change. Now, this gets pretty out there, but I'll say it anyway. When you combine AGI with a couple technologies that are not quite as far along, but I think are coming in within 10 years, being nuclear fusion and quantum computing, those three things, it's a whole new world order. Once we basically have limitless compute and PhD level AI, I mean, beyond PhD level, genius level AI, right? Like, it's hard for me to imagine that the world isn't almost completely different than it is today.
I'm sure.
I really believe that. I know it sounds like science fiction, but go back and read science fiction from 30 years ago. We're living it right now. Star Trek had mobile phones. That was their little tricorder. Like, we have those now. Like, science fiction is actually just prediction of the future, that we have robots. They're getting better. So I do see, like, I've drank the Kool-Aid on this one, and I'm actually a pretty conservative person. I'm always saying, pump the brakes. Like, let's not get over our skis here. But on this one, I don't know. I think it's all coming, and we get to be a part of it. And that's so exciting. I am the last generation that remembers the world before the internet, and I get to see AGI. Like, man, nailed it on timing. What an exciting, lifetime to have, right?
No, very true. And then when it comes to AGI, just in case our audience doesn't know what that is, can you just share with us real quick?
Yeah, AGI stands for artificial general intelligence, and it's kind of like a major milestone in the development of AI. And different people define it in different ways, but the way that I like to talk about it is it's an AI that is better than humans at most things. Not necessarily all things, but at most things. And when that happens, the whole way that, work happens and productivity happens and energy production, like everything changes. And then there's another one above AGI, which is like super intelligence, which is basically like Skynet from the Terminator movies, if I'm dating myself. But, one that is many, many levels above the smartest humans that we have. I don't know that we'll see that in our lifetime, but I think we'll get to a point where the AI is better at most things than most people.
Understood. No, that is so awesome, the directions that we're going, and just, I guess seeing the internet come around. I think that's so awesome.
I
When
had
it
an
comes,
I had an encyclopedia set in my home when I was a child. Like that's how
yeah,
we did reports. We like looked up, in the encyclopedia.
got it. I feel like when I started school, I want to say we did have internet, so I did not get
Mhm.
that option. But
Yeah.
that's still cool. When it comes to a company, do you feel like there is any pitfalls that comes with the transformation of getting a private sector for AI?
Yeah. So to me, I'm like raising the red flag. I'm telling this to anybody that will listen to me. You need an AI governance policy. You need rules for your employees about what they can and cannot do with AI. Right now, people are leaking confidential information all day onto these third-party platforms, and it is putting your business at risk. And, just like you have data governance and other HR policies, you need an AI policy. Of all the companies I've talked to maybe two that actually have a strong policy in place. I've asked HR people about this and they said, no, we don't even offer that as a service. We don't know how to do that. And so so that's step one, or one important thing. And that will restrict your employees. And then you need to provide them with tools to unlock the potential of these things, right? Lock it down, but then provide them what they need to be able to leverage this technology. It's too powerful to just say, there are major companies right now that say you are not allowed to use AI with your job because it's too dangerous. But it is too powerful to ignore because your competitors are going to figure out a way to use it. And if you don't, then you're going to get left behind. So to me, that's the major pitfall. The other, I would say, I mentioned this earlier, but stop chasing use cases individually and start thinking about a platform for your business. Think about it as an operating system, right? Rather than having to log in to 9 different things to figure out the answer to one question, having a platform that's connected to all those things where you can just ask and it can find the right information for you. Or you need to update a record in your CRM and you can just say, hey, can you update? I just got off the phone with so-and-so. Can you move that from phase 2 to phase 3 in our funnel rather than logging into HubSpot? Like that's how I think business owners and executives need to be thinking about deploying AI and stop chasing use cases.
Got it. And so is that something that your current system can do?
It is. It is.
Awesome. Is
Well,
that
we're on our journey there. It can do some of that and it's on its way to do all of that. But yes, that is what I believe businesses need right now. And that's what we're building.
awesome? Well, and I've used like the AI assistants, and a lot of it's just providing you a chat, but not actually like they call themselves an AI assistant, but they're not actually like doing the work, if that makes sense.
And so, right. And so the distinction there, which is an important one, is it's the difference between an assistant and an agent. You hear agentic AI sometimes and talking about AI agents. AI assistants kind of provide information. AI agents take actions. They have tools that they can use. And what that means in a very practical sense is that AI assistants have knowledge that they can search and provide you, whereas AI agents, they're connected via APIs to other systems and they can read and write, right? And create new records and update and all the rest of it. So right now, Compass is mostly an assistant on our way to becoming an army of agents.
Got it. Oh, and that's so awesome to know, just because I've personally have used softwares where they tell you they're the assistant and then you
Mm-hmm.
find out are the agent and then you find out no, that's not exactly, or maybe I just didn't understand the actual term for it, which is good to
Yeah,
know.
it's actually like I've been writing about this because people are misusing this all the time. Another one that people misuse all the time is, pre-training models, almost nobody's training models. The big companies are training models. The kind of application layer are using these foundational models and applying use cases to them, but in most cases, they're not actually training their own model. But people say it all the time. You look on websites, it says it everywhere, but it's technically not true.
Got it. And when you say training a model, are you saying more of like the memory base of the ChatGPT or the AI tool?
I'm talking about machine learning, training machine learning models, training deep neural networks, which is how large language models work. And that's like what OpenAI is doing and what Mistral is doing and all these folks, right? They're aggregating every piece of information they can find, and they're feeding it into these neural network algorithms to train a model to then, it's a predictive model. You ask it a question and it predicts what it thinks you want to hear. Right. And so machine learning is all about prediction. And these large language models are doing natural language processing, but they're prediction models, really. What's the next word? And so when people say they're training models and they're just like using ChatGPT through an API and maybe give it some special instructions, that's not training, right? That's instructing, that's prompting, but it's not training. So sorry to get on my soapbox, but I'm getting tired of all the marketing materials that are just like completely untrue.
No, I'm sure. And as a consumer, or, I wouldn't know that. So thank you for
Right.
sharing that with us.
And that's why I mentioned
One of the one of the things that you did mention earlier is the way that you stay ahead of trends is reading books. What are some of the books that you found very useful to stay ahead of trends?
I got one right here. The AI playbook. This is a really good one. It opens with this like staggering fact that I think it's like 90% of the models that businesses build never make it into production because there's a disconnect between the scientists and the business people. And there is often not someone in the middle that can coordinate and understand both sides. Because the data scientists, where they find joy typically is in building models that can predict things well. What they care less about, and I'm generalizing, of course, not all data scientists, but what they care less about is predicting the right thing, right? And when you're deploying AI, you need to be thinking about the return on investment as you're in the R&D phase. Are you trying to solve the right problem? And that is why 85% of models never make it into production, because you did solve a problem and it's neat, but neat doesn't cut it. Money is what drives businesses, right? And so you need to make sure that your models are predicting the right thing and providing the information that's going to move the needle. You have to cut costs, you have to drive revenue, you have to improve profit, you have to do something with a return for it to make sense to deploy it across an entire organization, because it's a costly thing. So anyway, that's what this book is about, is like a kind of a playbook for making sure that you're aligned across your different teams when designing and deploying AI at your organization. It's a really good one. I recommend it. Another thing I'll mention though, real fast, is a newsletter that I love. It comes out every day. It's called The Rundown AI. I read it every morning. It's like one of the first things I do when I wake up, because while I love books have lead times. Somebody's got to write that thing. Somebody's got to edit that thing. Someone's got to publish it. It gets printed and shipped to a bookstore. And like, it's obsolete by the time it hits my desk, And so I've actually shifted my reading away from books for the same reason that I dropped out of computer science when I was in college, which is that it's not current enough. It's all, like, unless it's something that has like long lasting value. But when I'm trying to learn about brand new technology that's coming out, books don't do it. But these like daily newsletters actually are really, really helpful for me.
Got it. And I know a couple, maybe months ago, we had somebody come in saying that there's AI books that were written like 10, 20 years ago are actually better than the ones currently. And I know we're talking about trends, but would you say that's true? Or
I think to a certain extent, yes. I think there's a bit of a gold rush thing happening right now where everybody's just trying to get their book out. Whereas there wasn't the same feeling of urgency back then. And you could really think profoundly, and think decades ahead and write about that versus a lot of these books are writing about right now. And right now is gone, just like that. And it's over and over, every day, every week, every month, every year. So to some extent, I would agree with that some of the older stuff like lands better than that. Like, I'll give you an example. The singularity is near. That's a good one. And he just put out a new book that I haven't read yet, which is called The Singularity is Nearer. Hmm. But that's a good older AI book that
Awesome.
I really like.
Awesome. And these books, would you recommend them for professionals like you, or, a small business owner or someone that runs a corporation? Are these books good for them as well?
So The Singularity is Near is not practical. It's philosophical. So it's only for somebody that's interested in this stuff and wants to have kind of a framework of thinking about it. But like, it's not going to help your business all that much or help you do your job any better. Something like the AI playbook, it is. That's a practical business book about the business of AI. And so, you have to just keep in mind what you're consuming. Is this for just my own personal desire to learn, or is this like something practical that I can, help me run my business? So,
which makes sense. Which makes sense. And before we go, Hunter, do you have anything that you'd like to share with us?
Feel like I've shared a lot. I'm maybe overshared even. So, no, I'll leave you with a thought, which is that like, there are people that are very afraid of this technology. A lot of people. And I've had kind of a core principle or value, or I don't know belief, we'll call it, when it comes to things such as this. And a lot of people like to make a connection between nuclear weapons and AI if it falls into the wrong hands and all the rest of it. But I'm not in that camp. While I think we need to be safe and careful about how we build this stuff, I do, because it is extremely powerful. I believe that people in general are good, and that there are way more good people than bad people. And so overall, the good will prevail, and this technology will be put to amazing uses and save millions of lives and improve, the life of everyone. And so I'll leave you with that on the positive note that this is going to be the most powerful technology that any of us have ever seen. And while it can be scary, I think very good, very smart people are going to make it improve everyone's life.
Very true. Mm-hmm. No, and I agree with that. And so thank you for sharing that with us. And I do believe that if the people that do decide to use it for negative, they're going to do it either way. So it's important that you have an understanding of it. Hunter, if people are looking to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
I encourage them to. I love talking about this stuff. Please reach out to me. I will respond. Just say, hey, I heard you on Shatoya's podcast and wanted to chat about something. Like, I'll get back to you. Email me, hunter@barefootsolutions.com. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website at barefootsolutions.com, fill out a contact form there, and we'll get in touch with you. But I want to be clear, like, you don't have to be a potential client for me to talk with you, so hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hunter. And you guys, thank you for watching.